This is part 3 of the video series on intellectual property. This part video focuses on Creative Commons. You can check our other videos on different topics of intellectual property. If you can't find desired materials from public domain and also don't want to spend time and money for copyrighted materials, you can search Creative Commons and other open sources where you can almost freely use the materials as long as you credit the original authors and follow the terms of public uses. There are a series of licenses, where an otherwise copyrighted work is made freely available to distribute under certain conditions. There are several types of Creative Commons license such as non-commercial and zero, which all have different ways they can and can't be used. Before going more details into Creative Commons, let's see some other designations which share many similar usages as Creative Commons. The GNU project, first announced in 1983, is aimed to give computer users freedom and control in their use of their computers and computing devices. By collaboratively developing and providing software that is based on the following freedom rights, that is, users are free to run the software, share it, study it, and modify it. Through its license, GNU software guarantees these freedom rights legally, and is therefore free software, the use of the word free always being taken to refer to freedom. GNU materials are not equivalent to public domain materials. Most have context condition attached. Only software created before 1974 slides into the public domain. Instead of putting GNU software in the public domain, GNU is copyleft. Under copyleft license, anyone who redistributes the software with or without changes, however, must pass along the freedom for further copying and changing it. Copyleft guarantees that every user has freedom. This limits the middlemen who modify the public domain software into proprietary software, or non-free, or semi-free software. And GNU closely related license is the permissive license. A permissive software license, sometimes also called BSD-like, or BSD-style license, is a free software license with minimal requirements about how the software can be redistributed. Unlike the GNU license, permissive license is not copyleft. Under the non-copyleft license, people can do anything they want with your code, as long as they provide attribution back to you and don't hold you liable. Permissive licenses are not actually equivalent to releasing works into the public domain. The original authors must be credited or attributed. If a work is truly in the public domain, this is usually not legally required. In U.S. copyright registration, it requires disclosing material that has been previously published. An attribution may still be considered an ethical requirement in academia. A major difference between the set of permissive and copyleft free software licenses is that when the software is being redistributed, either modified or unmodified, permissive licenses do not force the redistributor to open the modified source code. Copyleft licenses enforce the publication of the source code under the copyleft license. Some people argue that copyleft licenses see the world as evil, and therefore enforce freedoms, such as the availability of source code, while permissive licenses see the world as good, therefore just allowing good actions and hoping for giving back in form of source code. Permissive licenses do not try to guarantee that future generations of the software will remain free and publicly available, in contrast to licenses which have reciprocity requirements which try to enforce this. Permissive licenses place only minimal restrictions on future behavior, offer more extensive license compatibility than copyleft licenses, which cannot always be freely combined and mixed with certain legal time bombs. The Open Data Commons family, the ODC Attribution License, ODC-BY license. This is a database-specific license requiring attribution for databases. This makes ODC-BY similar to the Creative Commons Attribution License, but is built specifically for databases. as a legal tool that only requires attribution. It complies with the open knowledge definition, the Open Knowledge Foundation's standard around defining the rights behind what something means to be open. Since 2015, the Libraries and Documentation Service have started to work on the integration in WorldCat. WorldCat is the world's largest online database for the identification of library resources. Produced and maintained by OCLC. OCLC is a non-profit organization addressed to provide research and computerized library services. More than 74,000 libraries in 170 countries use the services of OCLC to place, acquire, catalog, provide, preserve and administrate library materials. Harvard Library, for example, developed an agreement with OCLC earlier that makes its metadata available under the CC0 public domain dedication. This means that Harvard relinquishes all its copyright and related rights to that data, thereby enabling the widest variety of downstream reuse. Even though it puts this information into the public domain, Harvard requests that users provide attribution to the source as a best practice without making attribution a legally binding requirement through a license. However, this good intention may not work in reality, because most countries outside of the European Union, including the United States, do not grant protection to non-creative databases. The ODC-BY license does not operate except at best as a contractual restriction on those downloading directly from the licensor's website. So this restriction, which is not based on any underlying exclusive property right, is unlikely to bind reusers that do not obtain the data directly from the original data provider. Some people are frequently confused with these two licenses. Yes, the difference between the CC0 and the free licensing is very little, in terms of how it affects you. The key difference is that under the free licensing, the photographer has given the right for the images to be given away for free but retains the copyright. In CC0 license, the copyright has been waived. However, under free image licensing, images are still copyrighted but are been allowed to be used for zero payment. All images licensed under CC0 are only restricted based on identifiable people, who cannot be featured in a bad light, or in a way they may find offensive. Although works may have been created long ago, so they are in CC0 license and public domain. However, this unfortunately doesn't always mean that their online digital versions are too. All too often they are published online under a restrictive license, often under CC by NC, which means there can be no commercial use of the material. These are the 6 licenses of Creative Commons. The licenses differ by several combinations that set the condition terms of distribution. The CC licenses all grant the baseline rights, such as the right to distribute the copyrighted work worldwide, for non-commercial purposes and without modification. The details of each of these licenses depend on the version, and comprises a selection out of 4 conditions. Now, let's go over each of the Creative Commons licenses, which cover many similar usages among the in-between category and designations. This license, Attribution-CC-BY, allows you to freely use the materials as long as you credit the author. Sometimes you may see the words unported in CC-BY license. Unported licenses are licenses that are not associated with any specific jurisdiction. They do not mention any particular jurisdiction's law. The advantage of Attribution-Share alike CC-BY-SA is that future users are not able to add new restrictions to a derivative of your work. Their derivatives must be licensed the same way. Attribution-Non-Commercial-CC-BY-NC license does not allow commercial uses, even you can modify the original work. Attribution-Non-Commercial-Share alike CC-BY-NC-SA license means you can only use the same license NC-SA non-commercially, even you can modify it. Attribution-No derivatives CC-BY license does not allow reusers to distribute modified materials. Modification to the original work cannot be distributed. Attribution-Non-Commercial-No derivatives CC-BY is probably the most restricted Creative Commons license, no modification and no commercial use allowed. Among the 6 different Creative Commons licenses, 2 of the licenses prohibit the sharing of adaptations, 3 prohibit commercial uses, and 2 require adaptations be licensed under the same license. If your YouTube channels are being monetized, such as collecting YouTube ads fee, or promoting sales of products, only 3 licensed materials can be used, while materials labeled with NC, NCSA, and NCND licenses are prohibited. All Creative Commons licenses require attribution to the creators. There are recommended formats to add attributes. Here are some samples. Generally, it should include the work title, author, and Creative Commons license with the hyperlinks. The key modifications must be mentioned if you are distributing a changed or modified work. Creative Commons has gone through several major changes. This website identifies the principal improvements to the Creative Commons license since the first license published in 2002 through the current version 4.0 published in 2013. This website also highlights important similarities and differences among the major license versions. The latest version 4.0 of the Creative Commons licenses are generic licenses that are applicable to most jurisdictions and do not usually require ports. The version 4.0 now acts as a single global license. If you contribute text directly to Wikibooks or other wiki subdomains, you irrevocably agree to license it to the public for reuse under CC-BY and GFDL. GFDL is the brief for GNU Free Documentation License. The GFDL makes no distinction between commercial and non-commercial copying and reuse of a work. For example, Wikiversity content can be copied, modified, and redistributed, either commercially or non-commercially, so long as the new version grants the same freedoms to others and acknowledges the authors of the Wikiversity webpage used as a source of content, such as a direct link back to the webpage. You also agree to be credited by reusers, at minimum, through a hyperlink or URL to the page you are contributing to. Non-text media may be contributed under a variety of different licenses that support the general goal of allowing unrestricted reuse and redistribution. You have to comply with the license when going through the websites for resources. It's very important to do your own research and pay attention to the type of license it is under and what restrictions that places you under. Make sure the license grants permission for what you want to do. You might need to give a credit, pay a fee, or you might have to do none of that. But make sure you check. Sometimes the rules vary from country to country, so you'll have to read the terms on each site as you go. You might know you can't just find an image, photo, song, etc. online and use it on your blog like it's yours. Similar as in public domain, no warranties are given. The license may not give you all of the permissions necessary for your intended use. For example, other rights such as publicity, privacy, or moral rights may limit how you use the material. Hope you enjoy the video. If you do, please consider liking it, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel to view our video library. To subscribe, click the subscribe button, or click our YouTube webpage link.